It's so cute! Shame about that serialization plan, though. For those of you who don't remember the time before adventure fantasy washed over this land like a plague of locusts, cartoons used to be incredibly diverse, and one of the genres that adventure fantasy killed was the genre of oddball superhero shows. See, way back in the aughts, the prevalent business model for most cartoon producers was to produce as many shows as possible, produce about 65 episodes, and then syndicate them for profit. As a result, you got a lot of unique shows that just didn't last very long, but for the most part, lasted long enough. This is how you got that glut of really unique shows from Disney, like Kim Possible, Fillmore, Recess, shows that all had their own unique vibe to them. But one recurring theme was the oddball superhero show, where they take the format of a superhero, but there's like a hook. Like Timo Supremo, a show about 3 kids taking on secret identities and fighting bad guys. Or Static Shock, technically a pre-existing franchise, but really came into its own with the series released in 2000. Or Atomic Betty, a show about a girl who is secretly a space admiral. No, really, that existed. Like most genres that weren't straight slice of life, it was basically murdered in its bed in 2014 when millennials grew up and started trying to remake the false memories of their favorite anime, leading to the adventure fantasy glut of the mid-2010s. But now that plague has passed over us like a homicidal maniac in a DreamWorks film, and we can all take a step out and take stock of our dead. Rest in peace, gay-baiting weeb trash. You might be missed. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that the fad of Avatar knockoffs did serious damage to the industry and the audience. It's gotten to the point where I've seen people adamantly refuse to watch anything if it doesn't have an overarching story. The same people who scream, "Let people enjoy things," are just unable to enjoy anything unless it dangles a carrot in front of their forehead. Unfortunately, while the internet lionized these shows, most audiences tended to fall off of them, hence why they kept getting canceled by their networks. And so in the 2020s, there's been a resurgence of the old gimmick shows that we've lost. Technically, it happened earlier with Rise of the TMNT and Lego Monkey Kid, but it was a transitionary period where they were still feeling the need to indulge in those trendy tropes. And unfortunately, we are still in that transitionary period, which brings us to today's topic. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur is a cartoon based on the comics of the same name, albeit taking multiple creative liberties with the source material, because Marvel isn't bothering with that Inhumans crap anymore. In practice, the show plays out like Dexter's Lab or Jimmy Neutron, but with an added superhero element to it and a cute dinosaur. Who wouldn't want to watch this show? You got a precious baby, you got a big fucking dinosaur, what's not to love? Given the success of the format I use for discussing the Steven Universe movie, we're going to do this first impressions the same way. So let's jump right into the first episode of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. The episode opens with the main character, Lunella Lafayette, giving a big Disney princess intro number as she roller skates through the neighborhood. I'm of the very strong and very correct opinion that the faster a show grabs you, the better. Fandom likes to claim a show will get good in season 2 and say that as if it's a positive with a completely straight face. I, correctly, consider that a negative. The earlier a show grabs you, the better. Moon Girl got me in 90 seconds. This entire sequence where Lunella just skates through the neighborhood singing about it and making time for everyone she comes across, perfect. Absolutely perfect. I've only had Lunella for a minute and a half, but if anything happened to her, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself. Then the number gets interrupted when Lunella notices that a locally owned neighborhood business has been closed down by a blackout, and presumably rolling blackouts have been driving a lot of local businesses out of the neighborhood. Oh goodness, Disney, is it time to talk about gentrification already? Luckily, her family's roller rink is still open, and Lunella turns out to be a techie because she immediately starts fixing all the broken gadgets in the roller rink. And I think this is actually the first time I've seen a gadget superhero ever solder anything. Also, Lunella's family is super cute. So many superheroes come from broken or dysfunctional homes, and I find that trope to be getting a little played out. Like, how many iterations of Spider-Man do we need where they slaughter his aunt and uncle? Does it have to be all of them? But Lunella's family is upbeat, happy, loving, they all work together on the same business, they're all just so sweet. Special mention goes to Lunella's grandmother, for whom it seems like someone looked at Ida the Owl Lady and went, "Ha, Dana's weak, hold my beer." I already know who Michaela's favorite character is. My wife loves her gilfs. They're all just so loving and so good, and it's weird that this is rare in superheroes. Unfortunately, once Lunella's mother tells her customers not to sweat the blackouts, the rink immediately loses power.
Don't sweat those blackouts, Lower East Side.
Good job, Audria. This is extremely distressing to Lunella, who just watched one family lose their business and now they might lose theirs. But it's okay, they have a rollerblade-themed motivational speech. I admire their commitment to the bit. The next day at school, Lunella explains to her classmates about a potential infinite power generator designed by a scientist that went missing and is presumably the main inspiration for Lunella to pursue science in the first place. She wants to finish the project so the Lower East Side will have its own power grid. She explains all of this while solving a Rubik's Cube behind her back, which is especially impressive because that Rubik's Cube is impossible. They were fucking with her and she nailed it anyway. Lunella then has an awkward moment where a social media butterfly catches her looking at her and she completely flounders and knocks over her entire lunch. Oh, they're definitely gonna dress up and travel. Lunella then gets home to find that the rink's been broken into, but it's okay, they didn't take anything because she designed a security system that splattered them with a dye pack.
Meanwhile, blackouts mean more crime, not to mention lost business, which means we get pushed out of the community we love. I'm not raising my baby in Jersey. No disrespect to Jersey.
So now we're in a serious bind for Lunella. The clock is ticking on her family losing the rink and having to move out of the community. So now she really needs to get that reactor in gear.
To the secret lab!
She has a secret lab where she's already built half the reactor? Lord Lamplight and fuck, could this kid get any cooler? She activates the reactor, but instead of providing power to the city, it instead creates a portal to another dimension. As you do, naturally the margin of error between generating electricity and creating a rift in the space-time continuum is very close. And then a giant friggin' dinosaur steps out. Oh, look at him. Look at him. He runs off acting like a big puppy while Lunella chases after him right in the path of Casey as she's live streaming. It turns out he just wanted something to eat, and once Lunella feeds him, he decides that she's friend now.
Look, I am not your mama. No matter how cute you are.
Turns out the power's being sucked off by some kind of electricity vampire. Did you have to say sucked off, Lily? Well, I didn't have to, but why wouldn't I? Back at the lab, Lunella's having to deal with having a big dinosaur as a friend now, and naturally the two of them conclude that they should be superheroes together. With Lunella's brains and the dinosaur's bronze, they'd be the perfect combination, but nobody can know. And then Casey immediately finds out. She remembers the whole dinosaur thing, so Lunella lets her in on the secret, and Casey decides she's going to be her PR girl, and she'll do it all for free because she works on the attention economy.
I've been told I can be a bit much, but honestly, I don't see it. Look, you're gonna inspire people, just like you inspired me. I can help get your message out there. I can help you help people. And you don't have to pay me a cent. Social media followers are my currency.
I like this. It's very easy to make the girl who's always on her phone and always live streaming into a vapid narcissist, but no, the two of them become the best of friends, and Casey's skill set isn't just useful, but valued. It would have been so easy and likely tempting to just make Casey another Andrea Davenport, but they didn't, and I'm happy about that. A very good character decision, especially given one of the executive producers is 61. Then we're treated to a montage of Lunella developing all the gadgets she's going to need to go superheroing, all while trying on new costumes and being violently rejected by Casey. I love these two, they're perfect. It doesn't last long, they settle on a design, and it looks great, especially the goggles, as they're designed to mimic eyes and even have little expression symbols on them. One problem with characters who wear goggles or visors is that in animation, eyes are the most expressive part of a character. It's why they're always drawn so big, much to the chagrin of joyless hacks who think realism is the ultimate goal. So when the eyes are covered, a character's ability to emote and express themselves is severely hampered. I could list examples until I'm blue in the face, but the most egregious version of this is Garnet, because not only are her eyes covered most of the time, rendering her incapable of emoting, her character is just relegated to being the stoic one and steadily devolves into a caricature. But hey, if I compare to every show's efforts to a show where everyone involved put in no effort whatsoever, I'd be here all fucking day. Moon Girl's animation, the character expressions, the choices between when they want to animate smoothly versus snapping from pose to pose, playing with the frame, and even that thing in some of the backgrounds where you can see the dots the comic books usually have. The animators make very good decisions on when to be a cartoon and when to be a moving comic book. I feel oftentimes this goes unappreciated as modern animation fandom really only thinks about good animation in terms of particle effects, frame rates, and combat animation having a distinctly anime feel to it, you know, being floaty and not very good. But it's expected that Moon Girl's animation is so good because the animation studio, Flying Bark Productions, also worked on Rise of the TMNT and Monkey Kid, another pair of contenders for the best animated work to ever exist. This studio knows their stuff and they bring their A game every time. And now that I've said that, an expose on abuse of crunch is probably about to drop onto my head next week. Lunella decides to take a test run and going after someone robbing a local business, starting to see the theme here, and they still have the dye that they got from Lunella's security trap earlier in the episode.
A superhero, and you don't even have a name? Look, if you don't take yourself seriously, no one else will.
That's what I said! Sorry.
Casey.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, the dinosaur is completely fucked off to go eat some garbage. As you do, leading to slapstick as Lunella just gets to eat shit on the pavement from a wholly uncooperative puppy dino. I love this girl, but at the same time, her misfortune is a little funny. This leads to the funniest moment in the show.
We're gonna go ahead and leave now.
I love it when the first attempt to be a superhero just fails completely. Lunella resolves to get herself in sync with the dinosaur and they spend another montage training him to obey commands. Until Casey comes in with good news, because she's doxed the robbers. That is very impressive and concerning. Make sure you only use this power for good. But you know, I also know a few people who really have it coming. And we finally have a name for the dinosaur. Devil. That's cute.
Ah! Yes! Oh, who is my good boy? You are!
That look is a little gay, not gonna lie. After they catch the robbers, they run into Aftershock again, who just... You have to see this for yourself.
My name isn't Lady, it's Aftershock. Look at you! That cosplay is adorbs. Who are you supposed to be?
Well, I'm... Boy, don't even.
Okay, you work on that. Got a jet. I do have a day job, that's right. A gal can do it all. Bye!
She's such a bitch. I love her. I hope she gets beaten to death with a rock. Later at the lab, Lunella finally decides to name herself the same nickname she gave the unknown scientist lady that's been inspiring her for her entire life. No doubt cartoon fandom is already going, where did the science lady go? But if you know anything about how NASA worked, there were tons of women at NASA who worked in the space race who just got forgotten by history until recently. You know, there's a whole movie about 3 of them, Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson. It's very good. You should watch it. In fact, here's a 4th one that's not in the movie, Margaret Hamilton, next to all of her handwritten code that sent people to the moon. Just a fun moon fact. Watch that movie, it's fucking good. Lunella then builds a device that can dox Aftershock in real time, and until it's done, they decide to help people around the neighborhood. Helping people around the town is something that a lot of superhero stories have forgotten as time goes on, as superhero stories become higher stakes and deal with more world-ending threats, especially in the DC universe, which is pandering to man-children who refuse to grow up. Outside of Spider-Man, you don't see superheroes helping the neighborhood very often, and in Moon Girl's case, it's clear that helping people is above crime fighting. It's an important distinction. Lunella will stop a robbery, but she's more concerned about returning the things that were stolen and tends to just let the robbers themselves go. Well, maybe she'll leave them in a dumpster to mull things over, but the point is nobody's getting arrested here because that would be counterproductive. They just go in the timeout dumpster to think about the fact that there's a dinosaur in the neighborhood right now. No cops at Pride, just devil in water wings and a cape. Eventually, the doxing machine tracks down Aftershock as she's draining the power station, and Lunella traps her in a bubble.
That's right, electrical lady. It's time for you to bounce.
This leads to a fight where... I can't be charitable. Lunella gets her ass kicked and gets her secret identity seen by the villain, which I should point out is superhero no-no number 1. Unfortunately, Aftershock would hurt a child, but Devil gets hurt instead. While Lunella angsts over if she's in over her head, it turns out Moon Girl is being framed for the blackout, leading to this scene.
I just wonder where the parents are. Yeah, they gotta be all kinds of dumb not to know what their kid is up to.
I love this show so fucking much. But oh no, Aftershock is the new science teacher at school, and they recognize each other immediately.
But you're stealing all our power. And because no one gives a rip about us, you think we're easy picking.
Wow, there is so much to unpack there. You know, it's funny, if you're a child, this is all, oh no, she might have to move. That's the tension. And you know, that's perfectly good tension. But if you're an adult, holy shit, the inherent political nightmare of predominantly non-white communities and how the government intentionally fails them and leaves them to be preyed on by nefarious individuals is just holding you down and beating you in the face repeatedly, and it's fucking great for that. This is what all ages writing looks like. Cartoon fandom infers maturity to be bleak, miserable, angsty, and overly dramatic, but in a single line of dialogue, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur manages to outclass all of them by bringing to mind the very real network of political bullshittery that's led to the Lower East Side being completely and utterly abandoned by those in power. But cartoon fandom doesn't really like to think about these things. Despite clamoring for mature stories, they don't like thinking about mature subjects like systemic bigotry, even if only tangentially. The Proud Family reboot did a musical number about slavery, and they complained about things getting too woke. Maybe this aversion to actually thinking about things has something to do with cartoon fandom's rather creepy obsession with torturing dark-skinned girls until they break from the stress, but that's just a theory. Anyway, Aftershock's threats to Lunella's family are significant enough to get Lunella to give up being a superhero. Flat out, hard quits, even to the point where she rages at Casey, leading Casey to decide she isn't needed and leaves. Lunella powers up the portal to send Devil home, but he doesn't want to go, so Lunella decides to lie and tell Devil that he isn't wanted and that he's a pain in the ass. Which is just, no, don't do that. Don't hurt the dino baby. Don't hurt the actual baby either. Then we get an extended sequence of angst as Lunella is depressed at school, wanders through the neighborhood that's completely falling apart, and everyone is losing their homes and businesses. It's just completely and utterly depressing. Then she gets home and talks to her grandmother, lamenting that she couldn't solve the power issues the town is having, only to be told that this isn't her responsibility and it's not on her to do everything alone.
You got me and Pops, your mom and dad, and that new friend of yours, right?
Yeah, Casey. Kinda messed that up too.
Well, if you're looking to fix something, it's never too late.
Motivated to at least try and fix things with Casey, Lunella goes to leave, only for Casey to have been outside and about to knock on the door. Aww, I'm tearing up. And then they talk about their feelings.
Guess I can be a bit much.
I think you're exactly the right amount.
It took them 7 minutes to go through the same arc that the Owl House has currently been taking a fucking year to do. I love this show, and they are so cute. They're like Molly and Libby, but they also have a dinosaur. They're so baby and perfect. I love seeing children be happy. It reminds me of the fact that when I was a child, I wasn't. Motivated, Lunella decides to go for it again and take on Aftershock. Her plan is to get the entire town to see Aftershock draining a bike stand, taking advantage of her slander reputation to get the entire town to follow her to the right place.
Hey, where'd you get that classic cassette player? Nice.
That's what this thing is.
Congratulations, Mr. Fishburne, that is the first funny Gen Z old tech joke. But just as Aftershock is about to kill the poor baby, in comes Devil! He never left! He stayed!
He said this is his home now, and it's worth fighting for. I'm worth fighting for.
Oh, this show is so fucking pure, I'm gonna die of diabetes. Lunella has a plan to stick Aftershock to a lightning rod to drain her of her power. This leads to a music fight, which given the second episode concludes with a rap battle, I'm guessing is going to be a running theme of the show, which I'm fine with. This is great.
Take cover!
Nuh-uh, not today, you're not.
The entire town decides to help carry the lightning rod to Moon Girl so that the plan doesn't fail, and Kilowatt Rowling gets impaled like Xemnas and sucked right into the ground. That's one way to bury a villain. They just fucking killed her. Ah, a classic. Nice to have a hero who won't hesitate. The Lower East Side gets its power back, all the businesses reopen, and then that's it. The episode just ends with another musical montage of Moon Girl and Devil speeding through the neighborhood. The next episode sets the mood of the show as Moon Girl has a rap battle against Vosh and learns the value of ignoring the haters. Kinda trite, but it's a Marvel show for kids. I don't really expect them to tell kids to just club their bullies with a rock, even though realistically it's much more effective. It still carries that delightfully high energy comedy tone. I just wish these things didn't need to make their own version of Shake It Off to tell a relatively straightforward theme. But I'm not even complaining. It's small potatoes and they got it out of the way early. The whole show is fucking perfect. Lunella is one of the most entertaining main characters I've seen in a long time. She's quick-witted, she's brilliant, her mannerisms are delightful, and the animators took great care to make her as expressive as possible. You know me, a show isn't good if the main character isn't fun, and Lunella is tons of fun. And like I said earlier, I'm glad they didn't make the social media butterfly into a joke character. The whole show, despite the producers being much older, largely avoids throwing bile at the kids these days, and presents a social media presence as not just a non-issue, but an asset. Social media and the entertainment industry has a lot of problems, especially with the way it preys on children, but almost every generation, especially mine, seems to think that the solution to those problems is to bully children for being on TikTok or playing Fortnite, which isn't a solution and doesn't help anyone, and you just get a kick out of being mean to kids for no reason. In the comics, or at least I'm told, Lunella has more of an insufferable genius kind of character in the vein of Sheldon Cooper. She isn't like this here, and the show is better for it. She's likable, kind, generous, polite to the people who deserve it, and this is a marked improvement. They could have gone the easy route and made her Jimmy Neutron levels of insufferable, but they went the extra mile, and I'm glad they did. The whole show carries the vibe of older superhero cartoons that used to be on all the time. Just off the top of my head, it reminds me a little bit of Timo Supremo, Static Shock, and Atomic Betty. They used to have tons of these novelty superhero shows, another genre that was killed off by the adventure fantasy weeb plague of the 2014. But unfortunately, this is where things get tragic. I mentioned earlier we're still in that transitory phase where producers are still trying to make this cancerous tumor of a trope still work. The show was looking out to be really good, and part of why was because the producers seemed to have their head on straight. Already, cartoon fandom was looking to filter this into their usual, will this be the next story-based show? Like they always do. But sadly, it looks like they're right. One of the executive producers, Steve Loader, has admitted that the show is going to become serialized very quickly, and the episodic nature of the early episodes is just while Lunella is settling into her role of Moon Girl. And this was fucking depressing, as I only found this tweet after writing out all of that gushing, only to have the wind taken out of my sails that quickly. If I had seen this tweet when it launched, I wouldn't have made this video. I wouldn't have even bothered watching the first episode of this. All of my enthusiasm for this show dried up the moment I read it. I'm not kidding when I say all that goodwill, that good first impression, was completely and utterly pissed away. I've seen too many shows have a good thing going, and all they have to do is just not fuck with it. And then what happens every time? They fuck with it. They start with a unique premise and then immediately start tearing it to shreds to just be another Netflix wannabe, and I am so fucking tired of it. The Owl House spending its final third becoming this dragged out, mopey, serialized mess that ruined its characters for the sake of tropes was the final straw. I am not even giving this a chance anymore. Maybe after 2 seasons I'll drop in to see exactly what the damage is. Who knows, I could be wildly misconstruing this. See, in the discussion of episodic versus serialized storytelling, there's a third format that continues to fuck with people's heads for some inexplicable reason. That being a show with self-contained stories, but has an overarching plot as a framing device. This is called serialized by cartoon fandom, but in reality is just another version of episodic storytelling. This is probably why Dana Terrace said her show was serialized a year before it actually became such, because the Owl House was this second variant of episodic storytelling. Serialized shows are framed like a miniseries. It's not multiple small stories leading to something bigger, it's just one long story. Legend of Korra was serialized because every episode ended on a to be continued as a single plot line reached its conclusion. But The Last Airbender was episodic, as every episode was a self-contained story, even as it built to a larger framing device of the war. The problem is that cartoon fandom cannot tell the difference between these two and files them both under serialized because they have this warped, irony-poisoned view of episodic storytelling to mean no continuity, everything resets to the status quo, and nothing that happened in previous episodes is ever mentioned, which almost no show has ever done. It's this almost caricature of a sitcom that doesn't exist. I'm struggling to name a single show that isn't Looney Tunes that works that way. Fandom has a bug up its ass about the word episodic and Monster of the Week years ago, and they haven't let it go. And the problem on the creative end is that this confusion as to what serialization actually is leads to half-written shows that exist in neither space, where stories are still technically self-contained but ultimately have little meat to them outside of teasing, because a serialized show, a truly serialized show, exists entirely on cliffhanger. It's a miniseries stretched out to an entire broadcast season. So when something like The Owl House decided to go serialized, it ended up as this hodgepodge of the two systems with the weaknesses of both and the strengths of neither, complete with a dose of torture and angst because the creator has issues. And is that what Moon Girl is going to be? Because if it is, I'm not interested. Creators need to stop saying this shit as if it's a positive. It's neutral in a vacuum, but given the animation industry's track record, it doesn't paint a good picture. I don't trust you when you say this shit. At best, it feels like you're insecure of the show you're actually making. And at worst, I don't want to watch this girl get tortured Passion of the Christ style like Luce did. Fuck, I'm so goddamn tired. When's the Ghost of Molly McGee coming back?